Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast. This is your escape for real, unscripted conversations about sports, hobbies, life, and storytelling. No scripts, no forced takes, just Man Cave talk. Now, here's your host, Dan Casper.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Man Cave Podcast. I'm Dan Casper. As always, a big thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Man Cave Podcast, where we are actually, broadcasting, as you can see, from the neon. Well, if you're listening, or I should say, if you're watching on the video version of this podcast, we are doing it from the Casper Cave, as the neon sign behind me says. So, as always, first off, let's do some housekeeping notes, right? If you could, be a friend, tell a friend. Check out the Man Cave Podcast on Apple, Spotify. It takes a few seconds, 5-star rating and a positive review, because that helps the algorithms. So it helps spread the word of the Man Cave Podcast to everybody out there. And don't forget to follow and subscribe. Click on that bell, that like button that they say on YouTube. What's the phrase? Smash the subscribe or follow button, whatever the kids say these days. Now it's called Man Cave TV, because we've got video forms of the podcast. We've got the radio show video stream on there. We've got Tailgate Thoughts, Green and Gold Hard Count, Scotty Sportsman, Kid Cave. All that is up on YouTube, our Man Cave TV channel. So, all right. On this episode of the Man Cave Podcast, we're going to dabble into a few different topics here. We're going to talk about the Olympics, wrapping that up. Want to talk a little bit about the NFL Combine. And we are recording this on the 23rd, all right, February 23rd. And tomorrow, which would be February 24th, is National Trading Card Day. So actually, the next episode, we are actually going to be talking with somebody who does it for a living, but I want to give kind of my background on it a little bit, because it's the Man Cave and we get to talk about whatever we want to talk about, right? So, but let's go to that. Well, the Winter Olympics are over with, so I've got this to say about the Winter Olympics, okay? The Olympics in general, I've never been a big-time fan of. I'll admit it. I've admitted it on radio, on podcasts. Like, I've never been a, die-hard fan of it, okay? It's just, for whatever reason, it's nothing that has really tripped my trigger, if you will. But I will say this, after watching the men's hockey game, take it down Canada, it's a good reminder what the Olympics are, and what that game specifically kind of told me and kind of reminded me this. It first of all, again, I'm not the biggest hockey fan either. I couldn't explain strategy to you or anything like that. I'm not going to pretend to. But I know when a game is entertaining, or when there's a good game or anything like that. And that hockey game between Team USA and Team Canada had everything in it that I personally love, and I think a lot of people love about sports. And it's probably maybe the big reason, or big reasons, why we love sports. It had drama. It had competitiveness. It had, overtime, storylines with Johnny Gaudreau's family and such, and just the triumph at the end if you were a fan of Team USA. But also you saw the disappointment from Team Canada. You can't have one without the other if you are in sports, whether you are a player or whether you are a fan. We've probably experienced, on average, more disappointments as fans or as players in sports than we've experienced jubilation or excitement. Maybe more others, depending on the fan bases and such. But to be real, there's probably been more disappointment and heartache among sports fans than there probably has been with excitement. Because if the ultimate goal is championships and winning, same team doesn't win every single year, right? Now, there's different definitions we could throw out there to define failure and success when it comes to sports and such. And I'm not going to dive into that essentially. But what I'm trying to get at here is that game had like everything and showcased everything that I love about sports. And the big thing on there too was not only just the stuff that I just mentioned, but for all the stuff that we are seeing right now in our normal sports world, whether it's Major League Baseball and the difference in payrolls, or college and NIL and transfer portal stuff, things that are maybe not making sports fun for fans and such. But what that game and what the Olympics in general reminded me of why I'm a sports fan, why I became a sports fan, why I became involved in sports. They're playing for pride. They're playing for the love of the game. They're playing for the ultimate prize at the end. It's not about the money. It's not about sponsor endorsement deals. It's not about, bonuses or anything like that. The Olympics are about playing for the love of that particular activity, that game. Their passions are flowing through. I don't care if it's ice skating, gymnastics, downhill skiing, racquetball, or I don't know if racquetball's in there, badminton, whatever, hockey, it doesn't matter. When you get to the Olympics and you see those athletes who have busted their butts to get to that point. And a lot of these sports too, I mean, there is no pro, right? They're not going like some of these hockey players, they're not going to the NHL. They're not going back to the NHL. A lot of these people, I mean, that's all they do, or they've got other stuff they got to do. These athletes are doing it for the love, for the passion, for the game that they're in. And I think that is something I personally have to do a better job of reminding myself when it comes to the Olympics. When I say, yeah, I'm not the biggest fan, or I'm not really going to pay attention to it, I might dabble here and there. The Olympics, every couple of years, winter, summer, it's a good palate cleanser, I think, for sports fans to watch events from athletes who are playing that particular game because they're playing for the passion, they're playing for the pride, they're playing for the love of the game. It's just a good break, I think, from the other stuff that we see in the sports world. Yeah, I know they don't have tackle football, so I'm sure football fans are like, well, I don't get to get that. You'll get flag football and such and that. But I understand that. But just the overall theme of why, think about when we became sports fans or why we got involved for sports, right? It was competition. It was camaraderie. It was the thrill of victory. With the thrill of victory is going to come disappointment. You can't have one or out the other. But that taste of victory, you wanted it more. That feeling, you wanted to feel that constantly. And times when you got close, but maybe you didn't reach the pinnacle or the top, it just drove you more. Those are just some of the things that makes sports fantastic. And that's why I want kids and younger people to be able to experience that. Like, I put it on my Facebook and my Instagram. Listen to what Mike Tirico said after the game, talking about, watching that hockey game and to the younger people watching that game right now, that's where dreams are made, and that's where dreams can kind of manifest. And he hit it on the head. It was so poetic. It was awesome. It was perfect. And watching the Olympics and watching the sheer joy and agony too, I mean, that's a lot of that is why we got into sports, is because we wanted to experience that joy, and when we did, it was awesome. It was the competitiveness, it was the camaraderie with friends and teammates, and just the drive to succeed. And when you won or when you succeeded, it was all you worked so hard for something and you accomplished it, and that feeling is amazing. And a lot of times you are the one that dictates your success or your shortcomings, depending on how you define that, right? It's not, I get it, some sports are based off judges and that, but you alone have the biggest hand in determining it, because it's your drive, it's your passion, it's your dedication and such. And there's so much about sports that can teach us great things, improve our lives in so many different ways. It's just, it was a good reminder watching that hockey game. To me, it encompassed a lot of the things, the majority of the things what I love about sports. And thinking about the Olympics again, it was just like, these are the athletes that are really doing it for the passion, for the love, for the drive. And it's just kind of a good palate cleanser with all the other stuff that's going on in the sports world that may drive us a little nuts once in a while. You know what I mean? So maybe I'm the only one. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe I don't know. But that game too was like, that's what sports should be about. You got rivalries in it. You've got this pure jubilation of victory, and yeah, nobody wants to be down, nobody wants to be sad, and nobody wants to lose, but that comes with the territory. It was awesome. It was a perfect bow tie to the Olympics, and it's just a good reminder what the Olympics, I think, are all about. So I'm going to do a better job, in a couple years when it's the Summer Olympics, to say, hey, remind myself, I'm not going to be too excited or wound up for it. It's a good reminder to just kind of, all right, take a step back and kind of be like these are the athletes that are doing it for the right reasons. You know what I mean? So now back to the normal sports world. We've got the combine coming up starting this week, and anybody who knows me knows I'm a big draft nerd. I love the NFL draft. It's one of my favorite events. One of the best highlights of my life was experiencing the draft, behind the scenes stuff by the stage with it being in Green Bay last year. It was a ton of fun. And I don't know if I'll ever be able to experience that again, but it was awesome. And I've always loved the draft. I was at the one in Chicago in 2015 and such, but it's one of my favorite events and such. And with the draft, the combine kind of kicks off the NFL draft, in my opinion and such. But I will say this, as much as I love the draft, I do think the NFL combine is overrated in some instances. It's still incredibly important, though, because the factors that I think it's important in is, all right, it gives teams chances to interview prospects, check medicals, and yeah, some of the testing. All right, maybe it double checks some of the work that you put in all season long during the college football season and such. But there are some of the activities that get a little overrated. All right, you could pick whether you think an offensive lineman running a sub 540 is great. It shows athleticism and such, but how often are they going to do that in a game? I mean, there's different things that we could pinpoint. There's definitely drills that help it. But when you got top prospects, like a top quarterback prospect that isn't going to go throw at the combine, it makes sense for him. It's like, okay, or maybe some of the other quarterbacks aren't going to throw because they don't know those receivers, so they're just going to do it at their pro day where it's a little bit more of a controlled environment, right? So I do think it's overrated in some aspects like that, where I think it gets too much. It gets too much. What do I want to say? Too much is placed on the results and the numbers from those. And I think if teams, and I don't think teams are doing this, but if they are, there's a team that is using those results of the 40 or long jumps or high jumps or vertical jumps or anything like that. If they're using those type of statistics and data as the main points in whether to draft a player or not, then I think they're in a world of trouble. Now, if it's to confirm some things or just add to the scouting reports, okay. I think it's still important. I think it's still valuable as part of the draft process in terms of getting to know the players, interviewing them, doing the medicals, doing the background check and such. But I do think it's overrated in terms of the hype that it kind of brings. Like, oh, if this guy's going to run a 40, he's going to be a top 10 pick. Or if he runs like a 4.3 40, he's going to be a top 10 pick. I think maybe that's a little bit more of a media-driven thing. And it gets people a little maybe too excited for something that in the bigger picture of things maybe isn't all that exciting. Like, I'm sorry, I used to be into it. I used to just sit there and watch it on NFL Network. Now I don't care about watching guys run 40s or bench pressing or anything like that. Sure, it's cool if the guy can, do, was it 225 25 times or something like that, but okay, tell me what it means when it comes to, can that guy go catch a slant across the middle? That sort of stuff. It's just, so I think it gets overblown in some ways, gets overhyped in some ways, but it's still incredibly valuable. And it's something that I still want to experience. I want to experience this, you hear these stories about after the drills and nights where you got the agents talking to the front office people, media talking to, agents and front office, finding tips and info. I want to experience that. I want to go just to say that I experienced it and I was a part of it, so I can knock it off on my bucket list and such. But it's not that far. It's in Indiana or Indianapolis, so I mean it's not that big of a deal. But it's just one of those things. You essentially have to go and do it, right? But yeah, I I think it's funny that it gets, and honestly, I think it's kind of caught up to a lot of people that, holy crap, the combine is this week. And I don't know if it's just because the Super Bowl was literally just a couple days or a couple weeks ago, or if it's just because it's right after the Olympics and that, and there was some stuff going on between the Super Bowl and this, where it's like, oh, hey, yeah, Combine's here. I feel like it's kind of flown under the radar a little bit. Maybe it's just because it's Monday of the Combine week, so it's like first day and such. But I don't know. Usually it gets hyped up a little bit more. It just maybe because there's other stuff going on, right? Spring training just began. Said Winter Olympics, the NBA is coming off their All-Star break and such. So, but yeah, that's just kind of some of my thoughts with the combine. Younger Dan was all about it. Now I understand certain points of it, certain aspects of it, but I do think some of it tends to get a little overrated and such. So, all right, for the next segment, I actually have to get up and get something because, I forgot to grab it before we started pressing record. So hold on a second. All right, so I'm back, and that was awkward. But tomorrow, the February 24th, is National Trading Card Day. And actually, I had this segment planned before I found out it was National Trading Card Day. But Hudson, as you know from the Kid Cave, my kid, he's been watching, is it like King of Collectibles on Netflix and such, like the golden auction stuff. And it is seeing some of those cards and the price tag of what some of those are going for and what they're worth and all that stuff. Holy crap. I don't, somebody's got to remind me, or maybe they could research. I wish I still had price guides for when I was a kid in the 90s. There was no way any of those cards were worth like $1 million, $20,000, $500,000. There was nothing like that, right? In the 90s, there could have been. I think Michael Jordan rookie card was like the most, or Mickey Mantle and such, but some of this, holy, Like, how do people afford these cards? It's probably like regular Joes are getting these cards and breaks and packs. Then they go sell them to somebody who's got this indisposable income that could just do whatever. And it's like, yeah, I'm jealous of that, but I don't know even if I had that money, I don't know if I could spend 300 some $1,000 on a card. But I guess if it didn't mean a whole lot to me, like money wise and such, it'd be different. It's just hard for me to comprehend. But holy cow, some of those cards is just ridiculous. And with National Card Trading Day coming up and such, I'm going to talk more to tomorrow with somebody who does it for a living and has a card shop and such. So I'll save some of that discussion that I was going to plan for this to tomorrow's episode. But what I want to do, and if you're watching the video stream, you're going to be able to see this. But I wanted to pick two of my favorite cards that I had as a kid. And I'll tell you right now, they're probably not worth a whole lot. They're probably worth a couple bucks, if anything like that. But I was never a card collector for the rarest card or the most expensive card. I grew up buying packs and just hoping to get my favorite players in those packs, like Shaq. I was a collector of Shaq when I was a kid, and I would just open up those packs and hoping I would get a Shaq or hoping I would get some Packers players if it was football. Then it was like Penny Hardaway and such. But I remember as a kid growing up in a town of 4,000 people. At one point for a couple of years, we did have a card shop. It was a grandpa and grandma, older couple that owned it, right on the corner off the highway. And I would go in there a few times and buy a few of the individual cards. I remember like buying a Deion Sanders card worth 60 cents because I was, trying to be, or I was a Deion fan and such. I remember I bought a Brett Favre coin. I think actually grandma bought that for me. But one of the cards that I wanted to get there for the longest time, and just it was $10, I think. And my grandma bought it for me, but after a few trips of just looking at it, and finally probably begging grandma a lot, she got it for me. But it was always, and it's not worth that much anymore, I don't think, but it was this Brett Favre rookie. And I just remember it there for a few times. And I remember getting a Herman Moore rookie because it was the same design. It was an upper deck same year too. But I just remember I'm like, oh man, I would love to get a Brett Favre rookie. I'd love to get a Brett Favre rookie. And it was always there, and she finally got it for me. So again, it's not the most expensive, but just kind of the story of still remembering getting it from this mom and pop sports card shop in a little town of Medford. So, and then that store went away. Our Ben Franklin in Main Street, then they had individual cards. They had in the back corner of the store cards, packs, pages, binders, display cases with individual cards and such. So, I mean, that was my go-to place with my friends every week with my like $2, $3 allowance would go over there and buy packs. And then I remember as a kid, my aunt would start collecting basketball cards with me. So, again, this next card isn't worth a whole lot, but I just remember as a kid, it was one of my favorite cards because, here, I'll just show you. It's Jordan, it's Penny, and it's Sean Kemp. And why it's one of my favorite is because I was a big Penny Hardaway fan as well. I was not a Jordan fan because Jordan beat the crap out of my teams, which was the Orlando Magic. And I remember I had a price guide. It was Penny Hardaway. I can't remember the name, but it was Penny Hardaway on the front, and it said, "Is he the next Jordan?" and such. So I always had this fun debate that Penny's going to be better than Jordan, or he is better than Jordan and such. And so when I remember opening up a pack and I got that card, I'm like, oh yeah, Penny, Jordan. And then Sean Kemp was a good player too in the 90s. It was like, that's such a cool card and that. So again, it's not worth a whole lot, but it was just the memory of it. And there actually is another Shaq card that I have. It's in a binder, but these are actually in a display case on a wall in my man cave right now because I'm trying to collect rookie cards of my favorite players. Again, not the most expensive cards, and just a few of my favorite cards. But I remember one time I opened up a pack of NBA hoops, and again, I was like, I just want Shaq cards. And I was just opening up packs trying to find them, and I got back-to-back Shaq cards. Same card, but it was back-to-back, and I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. So, but if you're listening to this, shoot me an email, mancavepodmail@gmail.com. Tell me what your favorite card is. Tell me what your most valuable card is. I couldn't even tell you what my most valuable one is because that's not something I pay attention to. I would rather collect as many base cards probably of my favorite players and just try to accumulate as much as possible of those cards. And then, kind of scroll through the binder and so it looks like a book or a magazine and such. But I'm sure, others are different, and that is completely fine, right? That's completely fine. But sports cards for me as a kid was such a huge deal. I remember reorganizing my binders all the time. It was so fun. So now seeing my kid involved in it is pretty cool too. So, but shoot me an email. Your favorite cards, who you collect, who you used to collect as a kid, any cool stories when you were a kid, or even to this day about collecting cards. Let me know. All right, and I'll share it in a future episode of the podcast. So, but hey, that's going to do it for this episode of the Man Cave Podcast. It's a little bit shorter because we are going to do another one tomorrow where we're going to talk some more sports card trading or sports trading card stories and just some back and forth and such. So, but shoot me an email, mancavepodmail@gmail.com. Follow me on Facebook or Instagram. Send me some stories. It could be card trading or your favorite game, a sports memory, anything. All right. Hey, you got a creepy story you think you saw Bigfoot? I'm all ears on that too. You know me. All right. So a ghost story. Yeah. My last name. Come on now. I want to hear from you. I want you to interact. Okay. You got some bad experiences with youth sports that you got to share? Send it on over. I can make you anonymous if you want. I want you listening right now a part of this Man Cave podcast. I want to grow the Man Cave brand and the Man Cave podcast, but I need your help, all right? I want you to be a part of it. I want you to be an ambassador for all that Man Cave stand for, the Man Cave, making sports fun, all right? Enjoying. There's so much crap going on in the world, and I think at times it infiltrates the sports world, and that's why I want to get this Man Cave brand going. So the Man Cave is a place for us to just get away from all that and talk some sports. Maybe we got a vent about youth sports. Maybe we got a vent about our favorite teams once in a while. But the Man Cave is a symbol for our passions, our hobbies, whether it is sports or maybe it's collecting something else. I got my whole Goosebumps collection on display in my Man Cave. I got a couple movie posters. I got a library. Like I said, Bigfoot, Ghost, it doesn't matter. Man Caves are about passions and dedications. Could be sports, could be a lot of different things. But I want to hear from you. All right. Hit me up with an email or find me on Facebook, Casper with a K, remember, and Instagram. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Man Cave Podcast. I'm Dan Casper. I'll talk to you on the next episode, which is coming at your way tomorrow.